Hello friends, what's going on? Welcome back! Hey you, welcome back to Football Therapy, mate. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Really do hope that. Welcome back to Chelsea News, the daily series. Here, of course, on Football Therapy, where I reflect on what's going on, what's being said, what's being printed in the headlines regarding the Chelsea. Plenty of things to talk about today. Chelsea inquiring about striker Johnathan David. What else? Antonio Rudiger talking about his future, his situation with his family, and, Chelsea, etc. I want to reference Matt Law's article about Thomas Tuchel and talk about an interesting story with Tuchel's meeting with Roman Abramovich, which is really interesting as well. And also, we have apparently nearly signed a left back, had a bid agreed for a left back. Interesting, Details will come. Settle in, subscribe if you're new, should you choose to. Make sure all notifications are turned on. And please do drop a like. Let's see if we can get over 2,000 likes. I reckon that's totally doable, mate. Where shall we start? I'm going to be citing some information, and then we'll talk about it on second Cam 2. Let's talk about Antonio Rudiger first. He's done a interview with Sky Sports, talking about his future at Chelsea. Of course, his contract runs out in the summer. He's been one of Chelsea's best players. We know that Chelsea are yet to offer him an agreeable contract in terms of wages, but he's been quite he's talked about his dedication to the club and while he's here, and that's been pretty apparent and, pretty evident in terms of his great performances and the fact how his performances haven't dropped. So I'm going to read some quotes from the Sky Sports interview and then we'll reflect on that. Talks are now between my side and the club. That's everything you need to know. When questioned about the big factors that decide this step in his career, the 28-year-old said, quote, "You need to listen to the missus," which is obviously very true and I like. "You have to think about your family. My kids were born here in London, so that tells you my family feels great here. The rest is up to the people to make their decisions, and we will see if we come together or not." Now, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, that is Antonio Rudiger telling you, I want to stay. He talked about earlier in that interview as well, a quote that I didn't cite there, that he sees his teammates and the coach as his family as well. So he sees Chelsea as his family. His wife is very happy in England. His children are born in England and they're settled. He does not want to leave Chelsea. And he's been public about that. Personally, I think he's been quite smart there, because from perhaps a business negotiation level, a lot of people could speculate, mate, why have you shown away your hand, like your cards? Now you're not going to get a good deal from Chelsea because they're just going to say, well, look, we know you want to stay here, mate. Take the deal. Stop being greedy. But the truth is, I think he's playing even more 4D chess ahead of the game. Because what's going to happen now is, if he does go, Chelsea fans will be like, well, we know he wanted to stay. Chelsea didn't pay him what he's worth. I actually think it's very clever. I actually think it's done the opposite. So if he's like, right, you're not going to pay me 200k, I'm going to go to PSG and get 350k or whatever. And by the way, let's pause here. Even what he's being offered, say he is being offered £140,000 a week and his family's happy in this country, you could argue that's enough money to just be happy and all be happy where you want to be. Do you know what I mean? But this is not real life. This is the world of footballers. So, yeah, I think so. If he does go, he'll have the Chelsea fans on his side. He'll certainly probably be in a better place than should Christensen go. I don't think anyone's going to have any bad thoughts about Christensen, but the way he's just sort of gone quiet and not playing and maybe snuck out the back door after joining the academy and stuff, I don't think anyone think bad thoughts about him. But the way Rüdiger's navigated this, I think is quite smart. So should he leave Chelsea on a free to get loads of money, Chelsea fans have heard him publicly state Chelsea's his family's settled here, but maybe he just has the opportunity to go elsewhere. I think probably this will get done. I've said this before. I've reported on positive news regarding this contract situation here on the channel before. Pretty much, Tuchel seems really confident. Rüdiger seems really happy. There is a report suggesting that negotiations have reopened, so we could probably be pretty positive about this. And on that, let's move on. So let's move on to the next part of the vid, bro. And before we talk about transfers, the left back that we've signed, or the bid has been accepted, and Johnathan David. Let's talk about this. I'm just going to cite an article from Matt Law's article in the Telegraph, which I urge you to go and read. I'm only going to read a paragraph, but it's good writing. He talks about just after Thomas Tuchel. He's basically speaking the chronological story of Thomas Tuchel's year at Chelsea, and he's just won the Champions League. Remember that, guys, in Porto. So, quote, it was then that Marina Granovskaya informed Tuchel he would be sitting down with the club owner, Roman Abramovich, for the first time in the lobby of the Yeatman Hotel in Porto, giving him just 3 hours to sober up. He had been drinking many gin and tonics, and by the way, this is a man in Thomas Tuchel who generally doesn't drink. Obviously, you're going to drink after the Champions League final, so he's probably, pretty damn drunk. Tuchel duly switched straight onto soft drinks and eventually went to bed around 6 a.m, getting about an hour's sleep before collecting his thoughts and meeting the Russian billionaire. Oh boy, what a story. So he's been, we're going to talk about the meeting in just the second half of this paragraph, but just for context, he's been partying with the boys, getting, pissed up, suddenly like, oh yeah, you're going to meet the big man at this time, and obviously it's pretty crazy. With the Champions League trophy packed and ready to take back to Chelsea with the squad to London, Tuchel had nothing to worry about. By the end of the meeting, he had agreed a 2-year extension to his contract and has been promised a new star striker. As hangover cures go, it was probably one of the most effective Tuchel, a former barman, I like that from Matt Law, had ever tried. Interesting. So, basically, obviously he signed an 18-month deal, and he had, I think they just added the 2 years on from that moment and sort of replaced him, gave him an improved contract, gave him more money. And Roman Abramovich sat down with Thomas Tuchel in said meeting and was like, look, mate, you done good. You can have this star striker. It probably wasn't like, we're going to look at Haaland, we're going to look at Kane, we're going to look at Lukaku, and whichever one we think we can get, we're going to get. Bearing in mind as well, all these players have been doing amazingly. A lot of people could have made a case out of Haaland and Lukaku. Lukaku wouldn't cost as much, and he's got Premier League experience, and he's got a relationship with the club. All these facts remain. But in terms of player profile, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure we're set up for like a centre forward. I'm not going to get into that now because I've done it to death in previous videos, and we'll of course. We could talk about it with Johnathan David in a minute. But it's a pretty amazing story. A whirlwind of a night in Porto. Getting drunk, meeting one of the richest men in the world who owns your club, who's pretty like no one meets him, no one sees him ever. And he's like, yeah, you're going to get a super galactico striker. I'm going to spend a club record fee for you, mate. And, and I imagine Tuchel was like, yes, please. Do you know what I mean? I don't think Lukaku was necessarily a Thomas Tuchel target, to use that alliteration again. But he probably looked at his team, chances created, goals scored, and think, we just need a clinical finisher. In fact, he said as much himself. You just need someone who's known for scoring goals. So, when Chelsea probably brought Thomas Tuchel into the room and was like, all right, mate, do you want Romelu Lukaku? We can get him for you if you want. He probably went, yes, please. Do you know what I mean? So let's move on. And let's talk about the final part of today's video. Obviously going around the headlines, I'm quoting this from the Mirror. So, yeah. Transfer bid accepted, ladies and gentlemen. Accepted for Derby County left-back Dylan Williams. The 18-year-old could soon find himself linking up with the Chelsea squad. We'll talk about that in a second, with Derby boss Wayne Rooney saying he won't stand in the player's way should he choose to leave. Rooney spoke to the media on Friday ahead of Derby's championship clash with rivals Nottingham Forest. Quote, we agreed a fee with a Premier League club for Dylan Williams. I couldn't stand in the way of his opportunity. That Premier League club is Chelsea. So Chelsea have agreed a fee for a left-back. I wouldn't get too excited, boys and girls. This is an 18-year-old left-back from the Championship who's got 2 appearances in the Championship. So I don't think he's going to be this teenager. I don't think he's the answer to your left wing-back woes. I think, this is just speculation here. There's not a proper left-back in the development squad at the moment. And you'd think he'd be going there to play that role there. There is some speculation that would allow Hall to come into the first team, who's of course not an actual fullback, left wing back, but can play there? Does that mean he'll try and play there, in the Chelsea first team? I'm not so sure. Maybe that will happen. Maybe we'll see like a promotion, him coming up to allow a promotion into the first team. I don't think this teenager from Derby is going to be the left back. Kennedy's probably in front of him. Alonso's in front of him. Left wing back, Azpilicueta's probably in front of him. Pulisic's probably in front. Do you know what I mean? Even Saul is probably in front of him, which is just because they understand the mechanics in the first team. Unless it was like a proper native senior left back in terms of top level, I don't think he'd be coming in. But I'm here to be proven wrong. Maybe Tuchel has a look at him and goes, yeah, wicked, you can come in, mate. And happy days. Do you know what I mean? It will probably cost next to nothing because he's come from Derby and they are absolutely on their knees in financial ruin. So, they'll take anything they can get. Let's move on. Now we've spoken about left back. Let's talk, and by the way, Emerson as well. It does look like Chelsea aren't going to get Emerson. I should have given this a little bit more time. But apparently they've rejected 3 approaches from Chelsea to recall Emerson, offering compensation, and they're just not having it. Tuchel wanted him, and he's looking like he's not going to get him. Emerson, I think, probably like the idea of returning to Chelsea, like I've stated in aforementioned videos, about the opportunity to win trophies this season with Chelsea rather than playing with Lyon. Despite liking Lyon, do you know what I mean? So let's read the second story in the Mirror about David inquiry made. Chelsea have made an inquiry for Lille's Canadian striker, Johnathan David. It has been reported. Of course, he's in scintillating form, the Lille's centre forward. According to Canadian outlet TSN State. So this is where that story is coming from, boys and girls, if you're not wondering. And whether this, just quickly, right? Chelsea making an inquiry for a striker isn't like a wild story. And if we never get properly linked to that striker, don't think like it's all nonsense. Chelsea have their fingers in like hundreds of pies. They'll make inquiries for everyone. So don't, this could absolutely be true. So I just want to get that there. The Blues have made an inquiry for David, 22, who has 16 goals in 29 appearances, which is a very good, it's better than 1 and 2, significantly or nearly quite a bit better than 1 and 2 appearances across all competitions this season. The transfer is far from being a done deal, there you go. However, it's a report claiming that Barcelona and Tottenham have also made inquiries into the forward's future. It is claimed the striker is not looking to move away from the defending French champions during the January transfer window, but it could make a big money move this summer. It's added that David hasn't narrowed his list of preferred. Okay, so we've been linked. Let's talk about this. And you know what? I didn't want to talk about strikers so much, but we're gonna have a couple of words on this. So Johnathan David, young, 22, looking in great form, great FIFA cards, in-form FIFA cards being released and people hearing about him and talking about how actually that Canadian national team is getting a lot better. His goals are pretty good for Lille. Bear in mind, Lille won the title last season, so 16 goals is good for, and yes, they had loads of players sold from that, Sumare and probably a couple of others were sold. It's very good, but it's not like, groundbreaking. I suppose he's one of the sort of bright sparks, but he's not quite, for me, Dujon Vlahovic, levels. And, people are upset with Lukaku, and yes, I think that's largely down to the interview, sort of perhaps player profile, and I'll absolutely accept that. But Lukaku's goals to games ratio for 2 years with Inter were absolutely incredible. Like, they were insane. Better than, I think better than that. Do you know what I mean? He scored for so many goals at Inter, arguably, I think Serie A is a higher level than French League. I think the French League gets a bad rep largely, but I still think Serie A is a lot higher level. If you look at how the teams are playing now, the Napoli, Milan, Inter, Juventus, Atalanta. There's so many good teams in Serie A now, whereas Liga, it's just not the same. It's not the same. So I wouldn't get too excited about Johnathan David. I'm at this point now, I'm at a pretty philosophical, agnostic place where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stop saying this is going to work, this isn't going to work, and I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to talk to you and report to you guys about the players, their stats, their returns or whatever, and give you my opinion on what I'm seeing in front of me and what I'm reading, because that's essentially what I am, a commentary news channel. And then, see what happens. I'm not putting my heart into anything anymore until it just happens on the pitch. I know who's reliable in the Chelsea squad. If we bring in someone, best of luck to him, but I'm not expecting it to work. And I'm not saying we're signing Johnathan David. Chelsea would probably... Well, we won't, probably, because we've got a really expensive striker. But we absolutely probably are keeping tabs on him, Vlahovic, all the others, to see what happens. And also, keep an ear to the ground to see if maybe someone wants Lukaku. Not that Lukaku's got a for sale sign on him, but this is what Chelsea do. They keep themselves prepared, and they keep themselves ready. So, I'll wind down the video there. Of course, we've got a big game to Moz. I hope you guys have a lovely weekend, and I hope we win against Tottenham, of course. I'll do a match review after that game. We're doing a sort of a briefing or a sort of post-mortem on hopefully a positive result. Comment down below, please do. I want to hear your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on the subject matter spoken about in today's video. You're all welcome to subscribe, should you choose so. I can't talk. Make sure the bell's turned on. Drop a like on your way out if you get to do it. Enjoy the football. See you later.